Hello and welcome back to Hawks podcast. I'm Tyler and that's Matt. And as always, we're back with another podcast for our Hawks. And it's a sad podcast today as both of our teams lost. But there was also a lot of chaos around the league. We've got injuries galore. We've got some playoff teams who lost, the 7 to be exact. And we've got some teams that were expected to be bad that ended up looking pretty good this past week. So with that, Matt has told me that he has some production value ready for us. So with that, I'll let him show us what that is, Matt.
Oh no! We suck again!
Yeah, it is true. It is true. Even though Kirk Cousins was second to Tua in passing yards for the whole week, we did not get the victory. We lost, as did the Seahawks. So Matt and I are suffering together. And as the eternal words of someone smart once said, misery loves company. So with that, we persevere. We did have a comment on our last video, who wanted to talk about Aaron Rodgers' season so far. Well, unfortunately, his season only lasted about 75 seconds in the regular season, as he stepped on the field and then was carted off with or was walked off and then was carted off the field with a Achilles, which was later confirmed that night or the next day, and that ends his career this year for the Jets. And I just want to say that we wish him the best of recovery, the fastest of recovery, and that hopefully he is able to come back and play football. That is one of the toughest injuries to come back from, not only physically, but also mentally. So just hopefully that this isn't the last we've seen of Aaron Rodgers. So I know he's beloved around the league by all, even me, as I've had to face him so much. I was excited to not see him as a Packer. Matt, any words about Aaron Rodgers?
You pretty much said it all. It was difficult to see how well the Jets played last night or on Monday night, and just seeing how if Aaron Rodgers had played, I don't even think it would have even gotten close to overtime. Josh Allen just played that putrid, and I feel like Jets might have actually just blown the Bills out for how well that defense was playing. We're coming into the season where we kind of knew how the quarterback would play, but the running game and defense was still a major question, and both stepped up. And really, the only issue with that Jets roster is the offensive line, which we saw um,
Yeah.
be that bite that probably ended the Jets' hopes to go to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I mean, with Rodgers being there too, like you said, they could have blown the Bills out, and with that, they could have just added on to all the hype they've received over the offseason, and they could have had their chance to prove it right there in that primetime game. So, I mean, for the rest of that team to step up, though, I couldn't have, imagined a happier ending than a walk-off touchdown on a punt return in overtime, against a division rival after losing your quarterback on the first drive. Like that's a, Cinderella type story ending for that game at least. So it's going to be a tough year for Jets fans. And also now the Packers don't get a first round pick anymore. They get a second round pick because he will obviously not play 65% or more of his snaps. So in reality, it's bad for both the Jets and the Packers this year for how that turns out. And it's bad for football because Aaron Rodgers is not going to be on the field. And I think that every fan of the sport enjoys football more when that man is on the field. So definitely just overall devastating. You never wish for injuries on anyone. And that's definitely one of the star players out there that you definitely don't want to see go down. But anyway, getting off of that topic, we don't want to just harp on that. Obviously, that news has been out for a while, so it's been, played a lot. Obviously, let's go ahead and talk about the tough stuff. Our team's lost, so with that, I'll kick it over to Matt. Matt, how you feel after that week one? What'd you feel going into it? What'd you feel during the game, and what'd you feel after it?
I felt good going into the game. The Rams are always tough. They seem to have our number every time we play. Either we lose or it's always a close game where we just eke by at the end. I felt good with the offense in the first drive or so where we ended the half up 13-7. Yeah, our defense only got one three and out based off of a penalty that backed them up quite a bit. But special teams had came to play in the first half where yeah, we missed a field goal, but we blocked one and then the Rams missed another to end the half. So, but after that, it just fell apart basically. With both tackles now being out, it'll be interesting to see how Seattle plays on Sunday, and especially with we're still waiting for Tyler Lockett and the news with his head injury, which I think they called a concussion. So he might not even be
Right.
out of concussion protocol. And kind of after Tyler Lockett went out, Seattle just didn't have an answer. I think it was like not even double digit yards they netted in the second half, which that's just absurd
Wow.
in today's game. Um, and honestly, like what we were talking about last week, Aaron Donald wasn't really that much of a game record like we thought. Now there's the clip with Aaron Donald just running wide open towards Geno Smith where he screams, "Oh my God!" But
Yeah.
um, other
And
than
he did notch himself a sack, but yeah, he didn't wreck the game by any means, from
which
what
that
I
was
saw.
later in the game once it things were out of hand. You had the I think I think it was a taunting penalty first where DK Metcalf basically shoved a Rams player um,
Mhm.
where there was that penalty, and I think there might have been another penalty, but it was basically back to back sacks on Geno Smith, and Aaron Donald collected one of those. For most of the game, Aaron Donald wasn't really the game wrecker like he's been in the past, where he has like two or three sacks by the end of the game, but defense just looked rough. We hoped getting Bobby Wagner would have helped, but I think he let up like six passes when he was the closest defender, which I don't know if it's just him getting back into the defense. Sean McVay found a weakness where he just exploited it, and Bobby Wagner just wasn't in a good position. Um,
Right.
it was also we couldn't get any pressure. I don't think we got a single sack on Matthew Stafford, and we barely pressured him. Um, and then good news for Seattle. Now, bittersweet part is I believe one of our offensive linemen went on IR, and Charles Cross is still injured. But with that game, Jamal Adams, Devin Witherspoon are still not back. So there's hope that we can bring them back. I think it was Trey Brown who won that second QB spot, who just got abused all game against a
Right.
freaking rookie as well.
Hmm.
Going into the game, I figured with Cooper Kupp being out, that gave us a better chance because you think now, okay, Tariq Woolen's going to cover the second best receiver, and we're only going to have to really worry about the third or fourth best. And I think there was two guys that got 100 plus yards rushing or passing or
Yeah,
just
and I learned new names that game.
yeah.
So
For all of that about Matthew Stafford not being able to get chemistry with the young guys, I don't think that was as big of an effect. We'll see from here on. I still feel like the Rams are a rebuilding team where they're missing a lot of pieces. And Cooper Kupp, I believe, went on IR last week, so he's gone for a decent chunk for the start of the season. So we'll see how it happens. But um, going off of the Seahawks, how about your Vikings? Who did they play on Sunday?
played the Buccaneers, and it's weird that you brought up how much the defense just looked rough for you guys. I loved our defense. Holding the Buccaneers to 20 points, you know, in most games, if you can hold a team to 20 points or less, that's a top tier defense. And when you look at the Vikings Buccaneers game, that we basically gifted them, the field position to get those points. And in one case, we even had a penalty on a field goal, which allowed them to turn 3 points into seven. you know, it actually was really good. Like, and Baker Mayfield, there's articles coming out about, he's reading everything. He read the defense like a book, which I mean, very well could have been true, but he only threw for 170 something yards. That's not by any means, a great passing day. So, I mean, he had 2 touchdowns, no picks. So, I mean, he didn't lose them the game, rightfully so. They won, but I felt for the most part, I loved seeing Brian Flores' defense. I think it did very well. The problem was we only hit him one time. As far as sacks are concerned, I think we had 3 or 4 QB hits. So we really didn't get home, but we did make him hurry up. He had to get the ball out of his hands fast, and unfortunately, he was able to do so and get those kind of dink and dunk kind of plays against us to where they were able to pick up first down after first down, which is how they took up most of the third quarter of that game. I think they took about a 9-minute drive down the field to start the third quarter. And so I love the defense. It was our offense that just could not get it done after, Kirk Cousins had the red zone interception, which I mean, part of that could have been a better ball placement. But KJ did catch it. The DB was just able to rip it out of his hands. So it was uh, just a bad play there. And that was an opportunity for us to have 7. And instead it turns out to be nothing. So that 7 points off the board there. Even with 3 of our turnovers, they all happened in the first half. We went out of halftime at a tie ball game, which is crazy because you would think if you're losing the turnover battle like that, you're also losing the game. And so overall, like it at no point during that game did I ever feel like we're gonna lose because I always thought we had that comeback moment from us last year there because it was just like we were just waiting for that big guy to step up. It's almost like both sides of the ball were looking at each other, kind of saying, like, all right, who's going to make that play? Is JJ going to come up with the ball? Is TJ going to come up with the ball? Is KJ going to come up with the ball? Anybody with a J in their name. Jordan Addison, is he going to come up with the ball? Or on defense, is somebody going to have a pick and get us good field position and we're going to walk off field goal the game or something like that? Like, at no point of this did until the very end, of course, when they ran out the clock, did I feel that we were going to lose this game. And it was just at that point that nobody took those shots. Kirk Cousins did not throw to JJ very much in the second half. I don't know if that was due to the play call or if that was due to the fact that he was being covered well because the Bucks made great adjustments. I do know that it's a little bit overhyped how much he's considered to be shut down because the entire third quarter was made up of one Buccaneers drive and not even the full Vikings drive because our drive took into the fourth quarter till about 11 minutes left, I think, for our touchdown. So when you have that much time taken off the clock for just 2 drives, it's really hard to get the plays you need in and the targets you need. So, and then from the fourth quarter was just Buccaneers, getting a couple first downs, neither having to punt or kick a field goal, and that's all they needed. We were not able to stay on the field offensively, and that's just it's another testament to the offensive line. That's the one weakness of our offense is the Buccaneers defense. As I've said before, they still have I think at least 8 of their Super Bowl championship defensive players on that starting roster, and it definitely showed. They got after Kirk. They forced those fumbles. Well, they forced one. The other one was our guard Ed Ingram punching the ball out of Kirk Cousins' hands. I've never seen that before in the NFL, so you got to hope it's just a fluke play. But just seeing that replay because it's online, you can go look at it again, and it's just one of those like, bro, come on, man, moments. Uh, so I mean, I really only put the one on Kirk. You could put the interception on him, but that's also kind of on KJ. So at most, I put only 2 of the turnovers actually on Kirk. But I mean, that offensive line's got to give him better protection. And, I'm glad that both of our tackles are at least not out like yours. But our offensive line as itself is just terrible. Our starting center, talk about offensive line problems, was hurt on the first play. He was there for one snap and then had to come out with a back, and now he's out for the foreseeable future. So we lost a lineman immediately in that game. And Then our left tackle Christian Darrisaw, who arguably could be a Pro Bowler this year and arguably should have been last year, is now questionable and is dealing with injuries already. So it's kind of just like our offensive line is already sucky. Now we're losing the actual guys who are average at best before we get into the guys who are just not good at all. So I'm over here just looking at what can we do, and it just showed in the Buccaneers game. It was definitely a trap game. I told my dad that before we watched it together. I was just like, this is a trap game for us. And he's like, it's only week one. How can you say that? Well, everybody's calling us to win, and everybody is calling the Buccaneers out, and I don't think they're actually as bad as advertised. I think this is a trap game. And we're also probably worried about Philly on Thursday. So, but
And
yeah,
what did I say?
overall, I mean, yeah, you correct. You called it. You called the Buccaneers would win. I wasn't surprised. I hoped we would pull it out. Because as I said, there was no point in which I thought, oh, the Buccaneers are running away with this. I mean, the fact that they had 3 turnovers and they could not run away with the game, or even like take a substantial lead, that's that's crazy to me. That shows that we had every opportunity to win that game. So, uh, hey, it's a tough loss, and I love the defense, so we got better there. I love that Jordan Addison had a great debut. I love that he got a touchdown. Uh, so I like all the weapons that we can do. All I know is we need to scrap tight end screens because that does nothing. TJ Hawkinson, I believe, had 9 targets, 8 receptions, and 35 yards because a few of those were screens and they were all negative plays. So that's definitely something we need to scrap against good defenses. So yeah, overall, I'm whelmed by that game. Uh, just because it just I was waiting as a fan myself. Who's gonna step up, make the play? Is Kirk finally gonna throw to JJ? Is he gonna throw to Jordan Addison again down the field? And just never happened. Pressure was too high. Our offensive line let guys through. A lot of missed blocks. So it's just one of those things. They got to fix it. They looked at Kirk Cousins last season, the most hit QB in the league, the most sacked QB in his career. And they looked at the offseason and just were like, we don't need to do anything. Like they legitimately made no moves this offseason regarding the offensive line other than restructuring some contracts of guys that were already there. We added no new players. We cut a few guys who were not up to snuff in like the second or third string. But other than that, we did nothing to address it. And that's been the weakness of the Vikings, and it will continue to be the weakness of the Vikings until someone finds an answer for it. So, hey, both of us coming off of tough losses, but hey, let's. I think we've adequately talked our pain through. Uh, let's look around the league. I mean, I think the most impressive win of this week was the Jets against the Bills. I mean, you lose your star quarterback that you acquired in the offseason, have been hyping up on Hard Knocks and all this stuff over the year on the first drive, and then you come back and win that game against a Bills team. I mean, that's got to be the most impressive win in my opinion. What are your thoughts on week one? Who impressed you?
If the Lions had beat the Chiefs full strength, say Travis Kelce and Chris Jones were there, I
Right.
would have given it to the Lions. Just the atmosphere, just the amount of pressure on that game, opening night kickoff of the full NFL year. You're going against a full strength Chiefs squad, and if you were able to eke out that victory, I would have probably said they were the I would probably say that was the best win of the week. But
Hmm.
because of what the Jets were able to do, um, now something about Josh Allen and the Jets just does not work.
Yeah,
Um, it's almost like a Sam Darnold where instead of seeing ghosts around the field,
he
Josh
saw
Allen.
Whitehead three
Yep.
times.
Um, I don't know if he just sees Sauce Gardner as a stealth bomber or something like that. I don't know.
No,
Um,
he threw all his interceptions to Whitehead. I
well,
believe.
there's a reason why you threw it to him rather than Sauce, but because after getting picked off 2 times, he won't get a third, right? But other than that, like getting over to like a bigger picture view of the league this week, it was a bad week of football. I'm not gonna lie. Either you
A
just
lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes.
yeah, either you just had blowouts or ugly wins where you had a lot of close games score
Yep.
wise, but there was a lot of games you just look at and you're like, that team never really was in it.
Yep.
Um, like um, Texans, we never really thought they were going to win, even though they kept it close. Um,
The Giants were never in it.
uh,
Hmm.
after the freaking blocked field goal for a touchdown, also can we
It all
say
went downhill.
Dak Prescott didn't do jack that game?
Talk about impressive performances. After the Jets winning, the Cowboys definitely has to be second. That whole Cowboys team, mainly that defense. Holy crap. I was fortunate enough to have them in fantasy, and that they were the main reason why I won. So,
Though
uh,
Dak Prescott only went 13 of 24, 143.
yeah. And Tony Pollard had himself a day
Yeah,
though, and
definitely.
I've been saying for years that he should have taken over for Ezekiel Elliott 3 years ago. So, or however long he's been in the league. So it's good to finally see him out there. He's a player I've liked, and so it's good to see him take over. The Giants have the Cardinals that coming up, so they'll probably bounce back and win. But I mean, if you just paid Daniel Jones in the offseason, you barely got Saquon paid, and then you go out there and drop zero against a division rival, man. I mean, I get the Giants haven't beaten the Cowboys. Well, they've beaten like one out of like the last 10 meetings or something like that.
One
I
out
don't
of
know
like
what the statistic
something
is,
stupid.
but so
It's like
yeah, I
once in
mean,
the
so
last
I
like
get that,
7 years.
but man, to not even put up any points, like that's crazy to me. And uh, so hats off for the Cowboys shutting them down and blowing them out of the water. But
You know who the
yeah, I mean,
Giants could
a
have
lot of
used?
fumbles throughout the league, a lot of interceptions, and a lot of penalties, a lot of
You
costly
know,
penalties.
you know who the Giants could have used on Sunday?
Who could they have used?
Kadarius Tony.
I don't see. Did they need another pick six because of a tip ball?
That's fair.
I just whenever I hear him now, I don't even think about anything he did with the Giants. I don't think about anything with the Chiefs other than the meme, which isn't even a meme, it's just the truth. It's the picture of the ball going to his hands in which he has a diamond to the side, and it says this was a pick six. And every Lions player is at least 3 yards away from him.
Well,
That blew my mind.
if you bet the over for the Dallas game, it was 44 and a half. So if you wanted to hit the over, that pick six would have helped.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But
So
then
I mean, hey, if you're a betting man, yeah, you wanted a Kadarius Toney on the Giants, I guess, for that game. But yeah, I mean, overall throughout the league, I mean, that there was a lot of interceptions, but I did see, one guy who threw an interception who looked great this week was Anthony Richardson.
yeah,
I called it the beginning of our podcast whenever we first started talking about the rookies. I said Anthony Richardson is my quarterback to watch of that incoming class. I think he has the best shot of doing it because I mean I think he has the least worst roster of the three teams. I think we've mutually agreed on that.
definitely.
But they're all pretty bad rosters. But Anthony Richardson has I just saw more of him in training camp and preseason that showed me that he's NFL ready, and I think he proved me right on Sunday. And I mean, granted, Bryce Young has to deal with the Panthers O line, which obviously doesn't do him any favors, and their receivers are not big name guys other than Adam Thielen, who obviously as a Vikings fan I know him well. He is older, he is slower, and he's got that nagging ankle injury. He was questionable going into the game, so he's not able to get that separation like he used to be able to. So he really, Young really struggled out the gate. But I think by the end of that game, he looked like he was getting the hang of it. But overall, week one, you know, didn't have the best debut. Same with CJ Stroud, but you didn't really expect much against the Ravens anyway. So, but
Which
it
they
was
kept
great.
that
It was
game
great to
close,
see Anthony
but
Richardson put up a fight for the Colts against the Jaguars. That was great to see. I still can't believe he converted that 4th and 5 on his legs. That did not look like he should have been able to do that.
I will say, just taking out CJ Stroud because of just how bad the Texans roster is, I feel like they'll be competitive in games. I just don't think they're going to be good enough to even make a charge for the playoffs. As we've said before, I think it's going to be a team where they're going to be a scrappy team that takes a win or two from people that aren't expecting, or somebody who might, like a team that might be dealing with injuries.
Yep,
Especially in that game with J.K. Dobbins, I feel horrible about that injury. Um,
I do too. Yeah,
Somebody who is looking for a contract just to go into the game without a guaranteed long-term contract and then have an Achilles tear where now you might be looking at the Ravens just drafting a replacement, and it's heartbreaking, man. Um,
I mean, we even said it two or three podcasts ago. We said, can the Ravens running back stay healthy? Week one, no, they can't. So, I mean, it's so weird. Like, what are the strength and conditioning coaches doing on the Ravens that for some reason are hurting their players, or what are they doing to their running back group specifically? Because it's always the running back group, which boggles my mind.
though it's also that whole roster, and I think if I remember correctly, if it wasn't the Cardinals, I think the Ravens might have had like the worst strength and conditioning slash medical team in the
Right.
league. But going back to what I was originally saying, after Ryan Tannehill with 3 picks, and as I said before, I just don't think CJ Stroud's going to be able to bring that roster to a level where it's competitive enough.
Right.
You could say Anthony Richardson is the second best quarterback in that division.
I mean, after week one, yeah, I agree. I mean, based off of this week, he definitely was second best quarterback in the division. I honestly do think he may even get there mid-season, or at least by the end of the season. But I mean, I'm not going to overreact too much and say he's better than Ryan Tannehill yet. Just because, I think most teams around the league, if I'm not mistaken, chose to not play their starters at all during the preseason. And I know that definitely hurt the Vikings. I know that hurt a lot of teams across the league. I mean, you saw Burrow throw for under 100 yards. I mean, I get that it was raining, but what world do you see that happen? Unless he's hurt, which he was not. So
Well, he did just come off an injury though, so
he did, but he's been saying all the past week that he's been good. He's good to go. He's all ready. So so that was one of the losses. I did pick the Browns, and rightfully so. They did win, but I didn't expect it to be the game that it turned out to be. I expected the Browns to win out a tough game. Like I expected them to come out maybe a last second field goal or something of that sort. But
that Browns defense can be intimidating for teams this year. Deshaun Watson, I'm giving him till around the middle of the year. He didn't look good again. And I know last year we're not going to talk about what happened and why he was suspended, but coming off of the suspension and after, I think that was even after a whole another year plus of not playing, because I think he came off an injury as well, and then there was the year he just didn't play. Um, he started to look better at the end of the year, but he's come back down again, and it's just like we'll see if after some of the rust comes off, does he get better? But going back to that Colts Jacksonville game real quick, probably
yep.
the one bright spot of the entire NFL this weekend, and I wouldn't say it was the biggest surprise, but Calvin Ridley, man, that man can fly.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
did not look like he missed a beat. and maybe being the number one wide receiver for that Jacksonville team was what he needed. As long as he doesn't bet on his stat line. Um, but just 8 receptions for 101 yard for a TD. Like
Yeah, yeah. I
people could
mean,
say that he was
he's been waiting a
overhyped.
year to do it. Been waiting a year.
People could say he was being overhyped coming into the year or potential of being overhyped, but I gotta say he delivered on Sunday, man.
That he did. He got paid for the bet he made a year ago. Uh, just kidding. He bet on the Falcons, not the Jaguars. But yeah, I mean, I love seeing some breakout performances. I mean, Tyreek Hill had the best day of any wide receiver, and rightfully so. He was electrifying in that game. I mean, he's the fastest guy in the league, so of course he's going to be able to beat coverages. And when you have Tua Tagovailoa as your quarterback, you know, you're obviously going to play well as long as he's standing upright. And boy, did they put up some great numbers. But you also had guys like Brandon Ayuk on the 49ers who went off. Uh, and against that Steelers defense too. Like a lot of people had the Steelers defense as one of the top defenses in the league. And granted, they still might be at the end of the season, but after that week one showing, they did not look that great. I mean, TJ Watt had himself a game, but other than that, they I believe they lost 30-7. That is it's not quite the game you want to start out, but then again, who wants to face the 49ers at full strength in their first game?
Yeah.
So, uh but yeah, I mean, overall you saw a lot of mediocrity, a lot of teams stumbling out of the gate, a lot of teams making mistakes. So, I mean, when you see guys like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen at the bottom, and Joe Burrow obviously at the bottom of the passer rating lists and amount of yards completed and touchdowns scored and all that, like something's off. So, um, I mean, both of our quarterbacks outplayed Joe Burrow, which is insane. So, um, that's just, but I think a lot of it was week one jitters. I think, just kicking that rust off, trying to
Yeah.
figure out a lot of teams trying to figure out, what is our identity? I mean, I know for the Vikings specifically, they looked at the rushing attack last year and were like, we had a lot of rushing touchdowns, but we didn't have a lot of rushing yards or attempts as compared to the pass. So they want to increase that more, which is why we brought in more tight ends and we want to run more 21 personnel. So they tried to mess with that and they got away from it after they had a few failed attempts. And I think that's not the way you should do it. You got to keep going back to the run, make the teams respect it. And the Vikings never got back to that. But again, week one, you're trying to figure out that balance. You're trying to win the game. And you got guys coming off, the offseason trying to get back into NFL shape. So, I think you got a lot of teams trying to figure out exactly who they want to be and how they want to get there. I mean, you even saw the Eagles. Like, granted, the Eagles won their game, so props to them. But you saw both the Patriots and the Eagles look very sloppy throughout most of that game. And the Eagles have both new offensive and defensive coordinators. So perhaps that's the reason for it, and they're all trying to still get used to that regime. But
But the
man,
Patriots almost
that
stole
was
that
one
game,
team
man.
I was not expecting the Eagles to look as bad as they did week one.
Patriots are right there stealing that game.
And I mean, and that's the game in which Bill Belichick usually steals. I mean, you get not the best weather. You get uh Eagles week one with completely new regimes, and you get a sluggish offense for the Eagles. It's right for him to take. So they almost did it, but you know that's just that I would say that's the most surprising game for me in terms of just like my expectations versus what happened. I expected Pat's defense to maybe make a couple plays, but for the Eagles to pretty much just beat them by a sizable score, maybe somewhere between 15 and 21 points, something like that. But obviously that didn't happen. But
I feel like we failed to mention this, which should have already told us that the Eagles would have won that game. It was Tom Brady Day.
Yeah. And that's exactly. You have all the signs point towards Patriots upset the Eagles. And
Well, no, I meant more the
they did.
Eagles would win just because of the Super Bowl.
Oh, right, right, right. That is true.
But man, it was nice to have football back, but these games need to be a bit better this weekend, man. It was ugly.
Yeah, I think we will see that. I mean, normally week one is crazy, and we do have all the injuries. We have teams trying to find their identity and everything. So we'll see how teams adjust. And I'm just waiting for the Vikings to get Dalton Risner. So, he's only a guard. We need two new guards and a new center because our center's hurt. So, I mean, I like Austin Sloatman. He's a great backup center. He filled in very nicely because he only allowed two pressures. He didn't allow any sacks. I think for our offensive line, that's great. So I'll take that from Austin Sloatman. If he can continue that until our starting center gets back, or even when he's back, that's great. I'll take him. But we still have two guards who are not up to snuff, and we still need some tackle depth as well. So, and if Sloatman gets hurt at any point and our starting center still hurt, we have no other guy who can play center, or at least no other guy who has taken any snaps in the NFL as center. So I'm very scared for the fact that the Vikings have not signed another guy who can play center. So, you know, that's what I'm looking at, and I think a lot of teams are going to figure out what they need to adjust and who they need to sign to bring in to fix the things they need to do, or what they're going to call differently. Uh, but overall, definitely happy to have football back. But that was not the outcome we were looking for our teams, and I think that was not the showing we were looking for the NFL.
Not really, man.
But yeah, because I mean, if I'm looking at that, you know, I would want to see a Super Bowl between the Cowboys and the 49ers. And that's not possible because they're both in the NFC. But those were the two teams that looked the best, in my opinion.
I feel like the Dolphins looked pretty good. Dolphins, just have to see about what's his name, Jalen Ramsey coming back later in the year. I
Yep.
feel like that defense will just build. I feel like the Chargers have a decent offense always, but as we know, what is it, Brandon Staley, their head
Yep.
coach?
Yep.
No lead is safe under him, and I just feel that game was meant for the Chargers to lose.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, so the only thing again that like you said with the only thing about the Dolphins is their defense. That's the only thing that keeps me from saying that you know, that they were one of the best teams. And I think they do sit at number 3 for me as far as who performed in week 1 if we're just looking at week 1.
Yeah,
And the only reason I say that is because correctly, you and I both were talking about the prediction for that game. I originally had the Chargers, then you reminded me about Staley, and I was like, just
Hank
because of that,
Gilmore.
I'll say they lose the shootout. And once you look at that, they lost by 2 points, and Justin Herbert was sacked on back-to-back plays at the end in which he could have gotten his team into field goal range at least, if not gotten a touchdown to win the game, which is how I thought they would have done it if they did. But
I didn't see
you know,
the end of that game. Did they put Austin Eckler at center for the final play?
they did not. They did not. No. Defense hit home for Miami finally, but I mean, in a 36-34 ball game, I mean, I mean, credit to the Dolphins finally stepping up when it mattered most at the end of the game. But for the game to get to that point, that makes me not trust their defense as much. Whereas the 49ers and the Cowboys looked good all around. Sure, like you said, Dak didn't really do much. But in the purposes of that game, did he have to do anything? He just had to complete passes. He didn't have to throw touchdowns. He just had to not turn the ball over and complete some passes, which is exactly what he did. And they fed Tony Pollard. He ate up over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that defense just completely obliterated, and the special teams as well. They completely just, they looked like an all-around team. 49ers is probably the best overall team, I would say, just because their offense was firing, their defense was firing, everything was looked great there, especially against the Steelers on the road. They're a lot ESPN and uh rankings guys around the league have them at the number one out of week one, and I don't blame them because they look like the best team in my opinion from that
To
week.
watch those
So
endings, though.
yeah, yeah. But hey, you know, they need a healthy quarterback, they need their big playmakers, and they need that defense. If they can keep those guys upright, then you know, that they're always going to be a team to fear, in my opinion. So, but overall, I think we were kind of just going to keep going around in a circle at this point. I
Well,
think we've kind of
hold
set
on,
our yep.
you're trying to miss that one game, and I know what you're trying to do. One game we have not even mentioned yet. Your worst nightmare.
The Packers against the Bears. Yeah.
Yes.
No, that actually wasn't. That was just a very forgettable game. I actually watched the first quarter and a half, and it looked like the Bears actually had a chance. Their defensive line was somehow hitting home, or at least like forcing him out of the pocket, which and sacking him a little bit. I was like, this is surprising. The Bears are supposed to be rebuilding. They're not supposed to have this firepower on defense.
No, we
And
both picked the Bears to win.
I don't think we picked the Bears to win.
Yes, we did.
We did?
Because
Oh.
we thought Jordan Love wasn't going to be ready yet.
Oh yeah, I called his week one. I thought he was gonna face the jitters too. So yeah, props to him for not facing the jitters. Um, but yeah, I mean, like you said, they've got the defense to back it up. They've got the O line and the running game, and then he also stepped up when Christian Watson was hurt. So I mean, props to him. But again, I'm not too worried about it yet. It's week one. Sure, the Packers won, and it's against the Bears, so really a division game. It's really hard to really say like, oh yeah, like I'm really angry about this when in reality that counts as a loss for the Bears, who I'm also trying to compete against to win the North. So those types of games for me are kind of hard,
I just
except for the
remember us
Lions. I'll,
talking
I'll
about
I'll root for
DJ
the Lions
Moore.
against somebody else, but
All I remember is us talking about DJ Moore, and all I saw him do on Sunday was shove a guy. So
no, I mean I don't think I was too hyped on DJ Moore too much. I said he's a great addition to the team. He gives another guy for Fields to throw to, but I'm just looking at, he's got the weapons. They brought their rookie was a tackle or somebody, right? I believe that they got as their first round pick.
might have been, I'm not sure, but
I think it was offensive line, if I'm not mistaken. And so I was trying to look for that to see if it was any better, and I don't think it was, and that's the problem is you can't fix five guys on an offensive line with one draft pick. So, I mean, and they're still rebuilding. I think a lot of people, mainly Adam Rank, are overhyping the Bears. Some people are saying they could even make wild card or even take the North, and I'm just like, no. I mean, at most, I could see 7 or 8 wins for the Bears team if they start putting the pieces together, but they're still rebuilding. They still got a lot of weaknesses, and the Packers having the better roster, it did not surprise me to see them win. But I'm not ready to call Jordan Love elite yet after one game. After one game, and after that one game being against the Bears, let's see how he plays against a tougher defense.
all I'm saying is he looked decent, Tyler.
Yeah, he looks decent, but it's like anybody who played the Vikings last year. Every quarterback looked great against the Vikings last year.
That's
You
fair.
you had Matt White. First, I'll make 2 points. You had Mike White come in for the Jets against us last year and have a career day, even though they lost. And then you have Daniel Jones, who came here twice, once in the regular season, once in playoffs. And both of those days were career days for Daniel Jones. Obviously, they lost in the regular season and won in the postseason, but Daniel Jones had career days, and we are the reason he got that huge contract extension. So in reality, The Vikings should be apologizing to Saquon Barkley for him not getting paid. My personal opinion. So anyway, uh, that's kind of my opinion with the Bears defense. They're kind of like the Vikings were last year because they don't have those pieces. It's pretty easy to pick them apart. So, uh, and the Bears have always had their number. Or I mean, sorry, the Packers have always had the Bears number. Granted, you kind of think of it as kind of like Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears and the Cowboys, but I think it might be a joint ownership. Perhaps the Packers got custody in the divorce. So, uh, that's kind of what I'm looking at it as. Let's see how he progresses. By week 5, if Jordan Love is still balling out at the end of week 5, I'll give him his credit. But I'm giving him his credit now. I'm not discounting him. He had a great game, great job. But you know, my worst fear is to have an MVP level quarterback on the Packers for another 15 years. So as long as he's under the MVP level, if he's above average, so be it. Just as long as he's not MVP. That's all I'm asking.
Just hope he doesn't keep that stat line for the rest of the season because then that's going to be MVP level.
Exactly. But he's also not going to face the Bears defense for the rest of the season. He gets to one more time, but not the whole season.
Well, then he gets to play your defense and then the
That's true.
Lions defense.
That's true. But the Lions did great against them last year. They sweeped them. So
Well, that was also of Aaron Rodgers.
it was. So we'll see how that goes. And our defense is also a completely new coordinator who did very well in his debut. So we'll see how it goes. Although I do know we don't have the talent on that side of the ball either. I mean, all we can do is disguise coverages and come up with different packages to send at them and hope it works. And a lot of the time it did work. So I mean, we'll see how it goes. But they still got some tough games to play. I'll again, if he plays a tough defense, and after week 5, I'll start giving more assessments of Jordan Love. But watching that game, it was pretty much watching any other Packers Bears game that I've seen throughout my life. So I wasn't really. It's not too memorable, That I wasn't trying to skip over it because Jordan Love looked great. He didn't look MVP level to me. He still looks human, but he had a great game. But it wasn't very memorable because it's like, oh, big surprise, the Packers beat the Bears. Oh wow. But anyway, I think we're done. I think that sums up week 1 pretty well. Uh, got some great teams that showed up and some teams that didn't. So we'll see who shows up in the upcoming weeks. And later tonight or tomorrow morning / afternoon, we will be posting a week 2 predictions video. So be on the lookout for that. And with that, keep Skull alive. And Matt, what's your Seahawks saying?
Other than Seahawks, that's pretty much it.
There you go.
Roll
Keep
12.
those 2 phrases close to your hearts as we continue to embark on a long NFL season. So with that, we will end this episode of VHawks Podcast. Thanks to all of our listeners out there. Let us know if you want to hear anything else, if you want us to change some of the format, or if you want us to change, what we talk about, anything you want to hear us mention that we haven't yet, specific teams you'd like us to cover, drop it down in the comments below. We'd be happy to do that. We'll jump into a larger analysis of it. But with that, that's been VHawks Podcast. Thank you for listening.
Price.